When are you going to realize that your specific person is absolutely obsessed with you? They've been obsessed with you, they're obsessed with you right now, and they're always going to be obsessed with you. And the actual only reason that you are not able to see this in your reality, because your specific person is literally begging to be with you at this current moment, but the only reason you may not be able to see it is because you are assuming it differently or labeling your reality in a way that does not align with what you want. Now, labeling is when you make a statement on your reality in accordance to what you feel is true. And this is actually something which is an extreme form of something called all or nothing thinking. So all or nothing thinking is a way in which our mind works to keep us in the same place and in the same state over and over and over again. So if you find yourself unable to manifest your specific person overnight, right now, in a week, or in the amount of time that you feel you want to, all or nothing thinking is probably the cause. And all or nothing thinking means if we don't have everything that we want, then we have nothing. Meaning if we aren't perfectly married to our specific person right now, then we are a failure. But you will see in manifestation, it always comes in a bridge of events, meaning you will be always on the path of being from where you are to going to where you want to go. And thus, an aspect of all or nothing thinking is just going to work against this, because then you will be perceiving and receiving amazing results with your specific person, but you're going to completely dismiss it because it's not already what you would desire. And I'll tell you exactly how to have your specific person show up in the way that you want. But the first effect is understanding that all or nothing thinking is probably impacting the way of your thoughts. Meaning we can't actually identify as being someone who is successful if we are pushing against this mentally within our mind. Meaning if you feel like a failure because you and your specific person are not married, or you and your specific person are not in a relationship, or not going on a date, or they're not texting you, then you're going to dismiss the success that you're having right here and right now. Then you will thus not feel like a successful person or a loved individual, and thus you're accidentally manifesting the opposite. But like I mentioned, an extreme form of this all or nothing thinking is something called labeling. So let me give an example towards you, and which you do probably at yourself, because we all do this at some time or another. And then I'll explain how we accidentally do this with our specific person. So labeling means we are labeling someone's character, which includes ourselves, as something either positive or negative, regardless of what we are doing. So we take a behavior. So let's say we've made a mistake. So instead of saying, I have made a mistake, we label ourselves as I am a failure, when in reality, you're not a failure. You're just seeing in your reality something that is a bridge of events leading to a success. So the way in which we accidentally do this with our specific person is when they are not texting us, instead of thinking, oh, they're busy, they're at work, or they're thinking of the perfect text to send us, we assume that they just don't like us, or they are not in communication with us, or that's just who they are. For example, when your specific person has maybe taken a little bit of time to text you or respond to you in the past, do you label them as a bad communicator rather than someone who in this moment just isn't communicating in the way you want? And I know it sounds kind of funny to still think of our specific person as someone who in this moment might not be communicating, but the trick is you keep that label of assumption or belief on them in the positive, and that's actually how they're going to show up, because the way you label your reality is going to be your beliefs and assumptions. If you are labeling yourself as a failure, that is what's going to manifest, rather than saying, oh, I have made a mistake. But remember, in the same way of reframing, we can make everything positive. Your reality, like I said, your specific person is already obsessed with you, and I'm just wondering why or when you are going to see it for yourself. And so the only way we're not able to see this is because we're making or labeling our reality in a negative way. In the same way, I've coached a lot of people who label themselves in the negative, saying, I'm depressed, I have OCD, I have ADHD. And yes, we may be feeling as if we are creating those ideas or symptoms, but remember, everything can work out in your favor. And I think I've talked about this before, but imagine having OCD or ADHD. It means your mind is running a little more wild than normal, meaning you have a greater creative energy and a greater amount of energy within you just in general, and are able to create and manifest what you want much faster, right? You could take anything that you seemingly feel is working against you and create it into a positive just by working on its benefits and labeling yourself in the positive rather than labeling yourself in the negative. But the main point of this whole manifestation, because that in itself will be very, very positive, but you just have to remember, we are doing this with our specific person all the time, and that's exactly how they're showing up. For example, let me give you a quote that explains this. Neville Goddard wrote, to change your world, you must first change your conception of it. To change a man, you must change your conception of him. You must first believe him to be the man you want him to be and mentally talk to him as though he were. All men are sufficiently sensitive to reproduce your beliefs of them. So no matter who it is, no matter who the individual is, your specific person or anyone, even yourself, if you make an assumption on someone, they already have the ability to reproduce it, and that is going to be the thing and the ways in which they act in your reality from here on out. So again, think of the labeling idea. However you are labeling something is going to be the way in which it shows up. End of story. And don't worry if you think someone is incapable of this, because again, it's just the label. If you think your specific person is bad at communication, look at the end of that quote by Neville Goddard. He wrote, all men are sufficiently sensitive to reproduce your beliefs of them. Your specific person has within them the ability to be in communication, to love you, to care for you, to be obsessed with you. And I would actually argue they are already that way, but we are labeling in the opposite and completely missing it. And this also goes into another quote from A Course in Miracles, in which they wrote, those who call truly are always answered. Thou shalt have no other gods before him, because there are none. The God in this statement, in which it's referring to, is your assumptions. So in this reality, if you are not giving or praying or asking truly of the God, which is your subconscious mind, then you're not going to experience or see what you desire in your external reality, because there is no other God to pray to. There is nothing else that can actually change the assumption or your specific person in the way they're showing up, except your subconscious mind and the way in which you are viewing it. I know we try to do other things. We try to go in our reality and act it out. We try to convince our specific person to act in a certain way, but that's not going to create the outcome in which we want. The only way in which we do this is impressing our subconscious mind. And I know our ego is not going to like this, right? Our ego is going to say, no, they are acting in this negative way, and that's just how or who they are. But we would have to actually ask ourselves, how is this actually going to create the outcome that we desire? How are we going to become better by thinking upon this or dwelling upon this? When does your reality ever become better? By focusing on why your specific person is working against you, or why your reality is working against you, or why your specific person doesn't want to be with you, right? That never occurs. And if you are truly honest with yourself, every time you focus or contemplate any assumption like that, you see more of it in your reality. When you have labeled your specific person as someone who doesn't communicate or doesn't love you, you've seen just that in your reality. And I would imagine, or I would actually press that the same has been the positive and the opposite. I guarantee you there's been a time in which you imagined or labeled your specific person as something positive, someone positive, or someone who always reaches out to you, loves you, and obsesses over you. And I'm sure you've experienced and seen those positive movements just as easily as you have experienced the negatives. But it is our ego and our consciousness that thinks there is a true reality outside of our assumption, but there is not. Your ego thinks there is a truth, an objective truth on your reality or what you're experiencing, and that you could think, oh, well, I can think positive of my specific person all day, but they're just a specific way. They are just this way. And that label is the only thing and way in which it could show up, because you basically make or create it by your assumptions. Even in a logical way, if you think of your specific person texting, if you have the assumption or label that they don't like you, then when they take an extra 5 minutes to text you back, you're going to make that into something negative, when in reality, your positive mindset or your true mindset, when you see reality as truthfully as possible and that your specific person is already obsessed with you, then you will notice that extra 5 minutes was actually them thinking of or trying to create the perfect message for you, because they care about you and they love you so much. And I know that way seems very simple, but your entire reality will begin to shift and alter and change as you begin to label it as something different. So not only label yourself and see yourself as the way you want, because your ego, your reality, your sense of self is truly tangible and moldable into anything, as well as your specific person, because everything is just a reflection of who you are. So take the focus and put it on yourself. That's the true creator in your reality, and you are going to see a difference. If you did have any questions on this, make sure to comment them in the comment section below. And remember, you can also reach out to me personally on my website at kyleaugustcoaching.com. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I can't wait to see you in my next video tomorrow.